All right, so you get to Peloton. So walk us through how it works. I know it's all like it was all remote, right? So you would record the workout, and then people from all over the world can obviously tune in and join the workout from everywhere. So like, what made you so different, and like kind of what led to the stardom?
That's a great question. I get uncomfortable in speaking about those things just because I'm like, oh gosh, kind of almost talking about myself in the third person. But I do know I'm good on camera. I grew up in the film industry. I grew up loving storytelling. And I think when I recognize the connection point between building a really strong fitness class, there's a narrative arc to it, right? Playlisting, there's a narrative arc to it. So if you can bring someone through a story within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, up to 60, and they're feeling good and they're working hard, because I work out intense. I'm a very aggressive person. So I have to get my aggression out somewhere. And I think in building that story and that narrative, it was really helpful because people could connect to it. And then later on, I'd say about a year into my time at Peloton, right about when COVID hit, I just felt like I had this platform and I had this reach to people. And to be honest, I looked like this like fake blonde California Barbie on the bike, and everybody kind of thought that's what I was. And I'm like, no, I have a lot of I have problems, guys. So I don't know. Just I was on Instagram one day and I was on Instagram Live, and I just started talking about like anxiety and depression and the fact that what I've been through and how I have a diagnosis of it and how I've tackled it. And that turned into a whole other beast where then I recognized, okay, this is the value of having a platform, because I'm speaking about something that's actually relatable rather than just, getting a like and a follow and a we love you comment. It's wonderful, but I just don't find as much value in that.
Kendall, were you at a place personally where you were ready for that fame? Meaning, I see some people achieve fame and even have some friends who have a decent level of just general awareness, whether it's even social media or through athletics. And I've almost learned to feel pity for those individuals because, like, on the surface, it looks, oh my God, look, they have the money now, they have the fame. But when you sit down with them, and especially if they're a self-reflective person, it completely rattles kind of the scaffolding you have and you identify by, because now all of a sudden you're in front of millions of people. Were you at a point when Peloton took off that you were ready to handle that? And of course, you already just said like, hey, I had things I've struggled and probably continue to struggle with. Or did it take, like, did that shove you into kind of a deeper hole where all of a sudden now you knew you had millions of eyes on you? So walk me through that kind of journey. And I'm sure opening up about it actually kind of had a settling effect to it. But were you able to do that right away? Or was there some time at Peloton before you opened up?
That's a really, really great question. I think, to be honest, you never know what you're getting into. Like, you think you do, you think you understand it. Granted, I grew up in the film industry. So I was a failed kid actor, thank God, because I think if things did go right, my life would have gone in a very difficult direction, given what I already have going on for me mentally. So I'm grateful that didn't work out. But in my time at USC, I actually met a great mentor, incredible film director, really actually does a lot of like beautiful storytelling about just like more men's issues. He's very Americana. He did Lone Survivor. I worked with him on Deepwater Horizon. And so I met Pete in one of my film classes, and he recognized, I think I went up to him at the end of the class and I'm like, you're so amazing. You started acting. You said, screw that. I want to tell stories. I want to build narratives and build, deeper bridges there. And he looked at me and he was like, how the fuck old are you? And I was like 20 at the time. And he's like, you need to go live your life. You need to go get your heart broken. You need to go travel the world. You need to get arrested. You have nothing to tell. You have nothing to talk about. And it kind of like threw me a little bit. And then that summer between junior and senior year at USC, I went to Italy, finished up my film and my language requirement there. I got robbed on the tram. The cops would never arrest me. I did make friends with the Cavalieri, but they were drinking at Company Fiore with us. So I don't think I was going to get arrested, but I was like, okay, we're good there. That's not going to happen. But I really started to kind of live life. And then my mental health started to take a turn that senior year. But I was grateful for meeting Pete because he's the one that noticed my intense energy. And that's where boxing came into play, because he had a gym on the west side of California in Santa Monica. And I started fighting. And I was petrified, but I was in a gym with a bunch of dudes and like a bunch of military guys. And I was the only chick. And I was like, okay, I can't back out. Sure, I'm going to wear the pink gloves because that's the only size that they have that will fit me. But I fell in love with that. And so I think, it's a bit of an extension from where we were going with feeling ready for it. But I had grown up in environments where I saw fame in different ways. And what was funny for me and still is now, I know how I don't want to be. Like, I know that I don't want to be that person that you meet when they say, like, don't meet your heroes because you get so disappointed. I've had that. I've seen that so many different ways. It petrifies me to ever have that experience with somebody. So I think it's the pressure that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, because you can't, because people with Peloton in particular, it's a parasocial relationship. So I'm with them every single day, telling stories about my family, about what our habits are, about like cool things while we're in these classes on the bike to motivate people, whatnot, really like sharing my story. And then I'll meet them in person or at an airport. Even now, this happened the other day. And they're like, how's your mom? Did did you play that Cher song before you jump in the pool? And you recognize these people have a full relationship with you, but I don't know them. And so there's a weird kind of I don't want to say an emptiness, but there's kind of a guilt that comes with that, I think, that I wasn't always fully prepared for. But I do believe that in being vulnerable and honest about what I'd been through, about my mental health journey, about how dark that chapter was my senior year of college, it became a great equalizer in a way where I felt okay to have the spotlight on me because I knew that it was serving some kind of a purpose. Otherwise, I think fame is very, very difficult. And I don't think it's necessarily something that humans are built to deal with and do well with.
How did you get there? Like, do you think if it wasn't so culturally relevant, meaning like 30 years ago there was a stigma surrounding it. Now it's like, of course, it's still evolving, but people are more open about it. And you see it in the NFL, the NBA, like these huge platforms, people are talking about it. So was that something you had to like stew over for a while, or did you know, like, no, this is something I'm just going to be open about, is like given the opportunity, or just where I'm at right now, I'm an open book regarding it?
Yeah, I feel that's a great question too. I got to a place where I hated the fact, let me put it this way. I had masked so much of my experience of what was going on with me deeper internally, especially my college years. Like, nobody around me knew how bad it was. I could cover it. I was a cheerleader at SC. I was doing the film program. I was doing everything. I did everything to fake it. And then having this platform, I was then that girl again. I was masking myself for everybody to be like this kind of archetypical, like California bubbly chick on the bike. And I recognized, oh my God, I'm doing this again. And it just felt suffocating. And I don't know what really happened that day. I probably pissed off some people that I worked with because they're like, why is she talking about mental health and putting our public company on the line and saying these things? I guess I asked for forgiveness and not permission on that one, but I'm really grateful that I did, because I think it was just a feeling like I needed to take the mask off, and just, I hate feeling suffocated by an idea that I'm being something different, or even allowing myself to be promoted as different than who I am.
And it sounds like that journey, I'm sure, was even as now you probably reflect back and it's like, oh, this started as a child, and then, but it seems like it came to like the true dark night was while you were in college. What tools have you, pun intended, what tools have you developed for kind of handling these things? And if you recognize those patterns re-arising, or those stories kind of re-arising, because I think if you trace back a lot of these things, you realize you have an underlying story that probably developed when you were a child regarding your self-worth or something like that. And then what happens is you confirm that over and over and over through decades, so that your reality starts to shape that, and your self-identity is either always looking for validation or always ways to confirm that reality you created when you were a child. How did you start to take a step back and get some space from that to where you're able to recognize, like, whoa, like that's not going to go, if I continue in that direction, that's not going to end well. And how have you found that balance, and what do you continue to use to kind of, if nothing else, hold it in awareness so it's not overwhelming?
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. It does root back. I think it roots back to childhood of like, I was always a very high achieving kid. I had a lot of personal pressure on myself. I was a gymnast growing up. I would be brutal with myself if I couldn't get a particular move, and the way that we were trained too, even as young kids, you couldn't do something right, you had to do 40 pull-ups on the bar, in front of everybody. And there was like a little bit of humiliation there. Now, I don't think necessarily I think tough training is not a bad thing, but I think on a developing mind between that and growing up in the film industry, where you're performing for acceptance, and the validation comes whether I understood it or not. I loved acting. I was a kid actor. I got very close on a lot of roles, but I got obviously a ton of no's. And I do think between the idea that, in my mind as a child, logically, I understood that if I work hard, then good things are going to happen. right? And I can control that. I went into an industry at a young age that no matter how hard I worked or how good I was, there's other factors that come into play, whether there's an offer out or you look like the parent or all of these other things. So it was very difficult, I think, to conceptually understand that. And I think that created definitely some neural pathways in my brain that go towards, I need that validation hit. So what's really ironic is that now I'm in a space where it's still a part of my job. You know, a huge part of what I do is on social media. That's a dopamine driver whenever a post does well or gets shared, or even if it's coming from a good place. So taking those breaks and being really honest with myself, I notice if I get, you know, a little bit overwhelmed or if I get short and a little angsty, I'm like, there's something going on there. I notice weirdly, like I have a thing where I hated being barefoot as a kid because it rooted back to some like control habits. So if I start getting weird about being barefoot at all, or like the floors aren't clean enough, that's always like a big, like, oh, we're starting to like veer back into those more contained habits. But it's interesting because I deal with this on a day to day, and full transparency, there's highs and lows. Like when your job is, particularly in this in between chapter between what I'm building and what I'll launch this summer, and between my chapter at Peloton, everyone's wondering what I'm doing next. I can't legally tell people quite what, and I have to continue to build my audience and feed that community. But that means I have to be on these validation centered platforms that can do messed up things to my brain. So it's the training, it's the habits in the morning, it's the gratitude journal every morning, it's the breathing techniques, it's the moving my body, it's boxing. I will still, like, if I need to, I will hit a bag and go crazy, or really heavy music playlists. Like I was known for this at Peloton. I'm grateful like they let me do it, but they're like metal or like really heavy hip hop or just really aggressive kind of energy allows me that space to get it out. So finding those outlets is so important.